This is my Sony HDR UX20, which is a high-definition camcorder that records to both internal memory stick, and to a DVD, which makes it one of the coolest camcorders I have because it records to a physical disc. And these are quite a rarity because they didn't make them for that many years before they discontinued them in favor of solid-state memory. Anyway, mine's got a sound problem. Let's see if we can fix it. I started removing screws on my little DVD camera here to see if I can figure out why it's not recording sound. There's no sound coming from the built-in mic, so I've taken out a couple screws on the side here in the disc compartment. I can lift off this, and then there's a couple more screws here I'm going to take out. Okay, you guys can clearly see that I'm faking this because I've already removed these screws. I forgot to start the camera up when I started undoing screws, so I've already taken 4 screws out at this point. And maybe take a few more out over here. I want to try and get this top off just to check the microphone to see whether it's a problem with the mic, because I can hear a hissing sound. So I'm wondering if the microphone itself is just not working. This is the camera that I used for the live stream, which took me by surprise that the sound wasn't working because it worked the day before when I used it. I'm not quite sure how to open this camera up, as I've never opened one of these up before. I don't think many people have been into these cameras because they weren't very popular. They were expensive and they were only on the market for a very short time. And it is on right now. There's the flash tube for the still camera. That's another thing that makes this camera kind of unique, is it actually has a real camera flash, a Xeon flash tube, which really works good for the stills. More screws here. DVD camcorders never really caught on. The idea behind them was that they were simple. You could take the disc out and put it in your DVD player. And that was a neat feature. The strength of this one is not only will it produce DVD, but will produce AVCHD, which will play in high definition on a Blu-ray player. I would imagine the top will lift off of this once I get all the screws out. Wrong. Remove this red screw. No, I don't. But I've never been into one of these before. This is the first one I've opened. And I would imagine a lot of people are in the same boat. But talk about a compact unit. You think some of the tape machines are small? This has got so much crammed into it in a very small space. A lot of that space is wasted for, of course, the disc on the right side of the camera, so everything else is crammed in on the left. You've got a full DVD burner in there. Complexity-wise, these are probably one of the more complex of the camcorders that was on the market. After all, it is a full flash-based camera that uses a memory stick, and it also has the hardware and software to create discs on the fly. And it can transfer. You can record onto a memory stick and then transfer it to a disc when you're done. So you don't have to record to a disc on the fly. You can remove the screws on the bottom too. Assemble all your clips together, do rough editing on the memory stick, and then record the memory stick onto a DVD. All in camera. And I got this one for $40 with the remote and everything, so I think I got a pretty good deal on this one. That's why I'm putting the effort in to see if I can get the sound working, because a camera without sound is not much good. At this stage of the game, I have no idea what I'm getting into, or even how to get this thing apart. Okay. What is going to come apart on here now? I'm curious. Okay, that comes off the bottom. Here's a little tip. Take the memory stick out before opening it up, because it has to come out or it's not coming apart. Screw here on the side. As far as a technical marvel goes, I consider this one right up there with the HDR HD3, which was the smallest of the HDV cameras that Sony made. And it also, like this, has a real camera flash, a real Xeon flash. I took my HC3 when I took my kids to Disneyland back in, I guess it was, what, 08 or something like that. I took that camera with me and did all the videos of the kids at Disneyland, and that flash was fantastic because at night I was getting great still photos. It's only 4 megapixels, but when you're just printing them on, small snapshots or looking at them on a screen, 4 megapixels is more than enough. Of course, the flash was necessary back then because this is CMOS sensors, and back in 2007, they weren't as sensitive as they are today. So that camera flash was a real good feature to have on a camera. And this camera being smaller than the HC3 was more convenient to carry, and it would have been pricey. I mean, this camera was probably, I don't know, $1,000 plus, at least maybe $1,500. It actually records a better picture than the HDV cameras because HDV is limited to 1440 by 1080 interlaced. This one's 1920 by 1080 interlaced. So this would be considered full HD. Of course, in that mode, you get like 11 minutes on a disc. But memory sticks, you could pop in and record a lot more than you'd fit on a disc.
There's no, there is an external mic input. It uses there's a hot shoe on the top for an optional mic. So it might be there's a switch in there that's shut off the internal. But I'm not quite sure how this camera comes apart. I've never taken one of these ones apart before. These were on the market after I left the business. So I'm not quite 100% sure how these ones come apart. It's certainly not nice and easy like the 8mm cameras, that's for sure. And I don't want to force anything because I don't want something to go flying and break. I'm sure there's probably ribbon cables and stuff that connect. Does this have to come out? Maybe this plastic piece has to come out first. That would be something that Sony would do. You'd have to pop a bezel out to get at something. That would be right up Sony's alley.
I'm thinking like a Sony engineer. But yeah, that bezel does have to come off.
You have to pull out this. This piece has to come out first, I think. And then and probably the other piece can come off. Okay, that's out. There's another screw down here. That's probably part of it. And a couple more screws right here. Red screws. Usually red screws mean something. Usually red screws have to come out to open things up. Or the red screws are ones you don't undo. Sometimes it's that way too. Already got the screw out from here.
Mini HDMI, I don't know why more cameras don't use that size of plug.
That should come off.
Because they're certainly a lot more robust than the micro US or micro HDMI that the newer cameras use, which look like they'll break if you just so much as look at them.
That screw's probably got to come out. Probably have to remove the memory stick. There we go. All right, memory stick's out. The side cover comes off. There's the camera flash capacitor to zap you good.
Talk about
Top cover
a crammed
one more
circuit.
screw down here. This top cover should lift off. Give me access to where the microphone is.
This has got to be the most packed camera I think I've been into. I'm sure there are others, but as far as density of circuit boards and compactness, this has got to be right up there. A real engineering marvel, I think.
undo a couple of connectors here just so that the ribbon cable doesn't get damaged.
The lady I bought the camera from, there was a invoice in the bag for when they had the clip for the battery that holds the battery on. They broke the release, and the shop charged them $190 to change the clip that holds the battery on. Now I understand why.
From the unit. Just try powering it up. See if I get any noise. Is this where the microphone plugs in by chance? I can hear something happening when I move this. Ah! Microphone came unplugged. Well, that was an easy one. Cool. So that's the microphone plug right there. We got it on camera when I fixed it. Interesting. Okay, well, that was an easy fix. Turn the volume down here. So, yeah, so somehow this cable came loose and the microphone came unplugged. So I guess I can start putting these screws back in because I won't need to take this thing apart any more than it is. Now that I got it kind of working. There was a couple of red screws, I think, over here. We'll put those back in place. That was a red screw here, if I'm not mistaken, too. Depower this unit while I put the side cover back on. Another little fix. Well, I'm glad I didn't have to take this thing down any more than I did, because this is a complicated little camera. And I really wouldn't be happy if it didn't work, because this is such a cool little unit. Record HD to memory card, internal memory, or to an AVCHD disc. I'm going to read you notes on disposal and transfer from the owner's manual. It says, even if you format the internal memory, it's going to be fun to put that thing back in. You may not delete the data from the internal memory. When you transfer the camera, it's recommended that you perform the empty function on page 83. Put this connector back in because there's not really much room here to do this. To prevent the recovery of your data. In addition to the above, if you dispose of the camcorder, it's recommended that you destroy the actual body of the camera. In other words, if the camera is dead and you can't go through the memory empty functions, you must. They're telling you to smash it to smithereens before getting rid of it. I think I got that one in. Now we'll get this other one in down here. Why do I have to make these things so bloody small? Okay, now I can stick the side back on. And there was a screw that went in here. I forget whether it was a red screw or not. It might have been. There was a screw that went in here. And then this piece went in.
the person I bought it from, they didn't even format it or perform the memory empty, and I did the format just because it had data on it when I got it. But maybe at a future date, well, I'll go through the memory empty feature, which apparently writes random data to all of the internal memory to wipe everything. A few years back, I bought a camcorder at Best Buy in the bargain bin, and it had someone's entire vacation. It was a camcorder. I think it had like a 60 or 80 gig hard drive in it, and it was full of their vacation. And they bought a camera, they took it on holidays, and then they returned it to the store, and they didn't wipe what was on there. So I got a copy of their entire vacation that I if I can find it, I'll put it up sometime, because
silver screws.
it'd be fun looking at someone else's holiday. One thing I don't know is, once I get this all back together, is this thing even going to work? I have no idea, because I've never taken one of these apart before, and I hope I don't have to again. But at least now I know how to get into it if that mic ever comes unplugged again.
I was going to use this little camera for when I do live streams, because it's small, and yeah, it's not the highest quality, but it's good enough for doing the live streams. So that was the plan, was to use this one for that type of stuff. Okay, there was another screw down here.
One of the nice things about this little camera was it had a 15 times zoom lens, which a lot of the small cameras of this era, 2008, 2009, only had a 10 times. Like my little HDV camera, my, HC3, it only has a 10 times lens. And that's like, I think, 2005 or 2006 when that one was around. But only a 10 times lens. This is a 15 times lens, which, again, was a little bit better, especially if you're traveling, because it goes not only wider but more on the telephoto side as well. So that made this a nice little camera.
That color screws. It's got to be a black one. And that piece goes in.
In the highest quality mode, it's 1920 by 1080 interlaced, which is higher quality than the HDV, which was 1440 by 1080 interlaced. This one also has the 1440 resolution mode as well for the longer recording times. And I think it even has a 720 for the really longest recording time. I think it drops to 720. I haven't tried that mode though, so I'm not sure. But we'll give this thing a workout.
On this little camera for the size of this thing, it's got tons of screws.
In a couple of weeks, when more of the flowers come out and there's some more color out in the garden, I'm going to take this camera, my HC3 and my FX1, and we'll take the three of them out in record and compare the picture quality between this one and the two tape-based cameras. And I'll do recording on both the memory stick and onto the disc itself directly, so we can do a direct comparison and see which one actually looks better. And I might even use my AX33 as a reference in HD mode, of course, or even maybe even my AX100. Although that's going to blow them all away, so maybe we'll stick to the Handycam size ones. But I'll do that like I did last year with some other standard definition cameras. We'll take them out and just kind of do a comparison on equal ground between
Try to remember which ones went where.
A couple cameras of the same era, just to see how they compare in terms of picture quality. Try to give them as fair a comparison as I can. And of course, I'll upscale it to 4K for the YouTube upload, so that
this one went down here.
It will give you the guys the best possible experience from it.
And then there was another one that went down here somewhere. Okay, this piece goes on. There was another screw that went down the top here. I think it was this little red one. It's a short one. And then this cover plate went on. Like that. I think that's how it went. And there's another screw and a couple more screws in the back here. And then there was 2 more that went down and held the this cover in place. And they were threaded screws. They were plastic screws. I may have put one in the wrong place here. Is that a plastic screw? I think it is a plastic screw. Yeah, that's a plastic screw. That one would be probably this one. I'll power this thing up and make sure I still have sound now that I got it back together. And then put the last screws in. Okay, power on. We got sound. Open this up. Put the disc and the bezel back in. It does fit in there, it just doesn't want to snap in. You know what, it's probably because that screw's too big. It's one of the smaller screws that went in there. Probably this one. In fact, that other screw might have been left over from that other camera. That's probably what that was. Okay, let's try that. That's a little better. That's a little better. I think that other screw was one left over from that other camera that was scrapped. So put these screws in. I'm going to do a test recording. We'll test it onto memory stick and to DVD. So there's my little mini DVD. We'll pop that in there. Close that down. Make sure that my drive spins up. It says disk access. Okay, now I gotta reset this thing because I had the thing unplugged. I had the battery unplugged, so I gotta set the area. Los Angeles. Daylight saving time on. And I gotta set the date. Starts out at 2007. And today is 4/26. And it's 9:20 p.m. And we're set. Now I'm going to go into the menu here and we'll set this up for movie. I think I got to set up the mode. It's on internal memory right now, so I just got to go into the settings and say the movie media, and we'll set it to disc. And now we're set to set it to memory stick. Okay, well, we can do it off memory stick. We'll test that first. Then I'll do the disc. So pop the memory stick in, and we'll do a test recording. I'll just wave in front of the camera. Testing, testing. You can hear me, and we'll play this back. So I'll go to playback. And this should be test recording. I'll just wave. Okay, that part works. So let's go set this up for movie media set. Disc. Make sure I'm able to record to disc. There we go. And go back to camera. And then it says Sony disc recommended, of course. Hit record. And we're testing the recording to disc. I'll play this back now. and hit playback. And that should be my recording. Hit record. And we're testing the recording. It works! Excellent! I'm happy. Excellent. There you go. Fixed my little $40 high definition Handycam internal memory, memory stick, and of course DVD-RW. And this is the camera I'd be using for when I'm doing some of my live streaming stuff. So we will be seeing it on the air doing live stream. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye.